Well, it's that time of year where motivation is starting to run low, the daylight hours are limited, and the temperature is dropping in many parts of the world. It is amazing how much harder it is to head out for a run in the dark, whether that's early in the morning before work or late in the evening after work. It just seems like it's the last thing you want to do. But in today's video, I want to try and change your mind on that, and I'm going to give you a bit of a guide and some tips on running in the dark. Right then, I feel like I may need to convince some of you as to the benefits of running in the dark. And I have to be totally honest, looking outside, out the window right now, I may need a little bit of convincing myself because it doesn't look too appealing out there right now. However, that aside, you really should not feel limited as to when you can run during the day. Many of you will opt for daylight hours. However, running in the dark, in my opinion, one of the most amazing things about it, quite simple, is the fact that it tends to be quieter because it's either early in the morning or late in the evening. There are just typically less people out on the roads, less people on the paths, and there's just this feeling of it being slightly more relaxed. That also comes hand in hand with cleaner air, which is particularly important if you do tend to run alongside busy roads or run in the middle of a city. Also, if you are lucky enough to live in warm or even hot climates, then there is also the fact that by running in the dark in the early hours or late in the evening, then it is simply a nice respite from the usual daytime heat. It may require a bit of motivation to get out during those early hours and late into the evening, although probably not as bad as I'm imagining given the temperatures that you experience compared to us. There is also the fact, and probably the reason why so many of you do your runs in the dark, is the fact that it frees up time for you to do other tasks and jobs during the daylight hours. I know that's why so many of you resort to that, but I've got to say that does bring a huge benefit with it. It's the variety, and that's the reason I love it. It's just some of your normal runs suddenly feel so different. I know that sounds obvious because they are in the dark, but it's a sense of adventure. It makes your senses literally more alert. You're not being able to rely on your eyesight as you ordinarily would. You're suddenly having to rely on your hearing and even your smell to some degree. And then with that then comes just the fact that you forget about all your normal worries and stresses. You are literally having to focus on your running because you need to be so much more alert as to where you're stepping and which corners and turns you take. And finally, there is one big one, is the fact it's free. You're not having to pay to go to a gym before or after work. You literally just grab your trainers and go. Right then, well, I should probably practice what I preach and go and get myself ready. All right, I think I'm ready, and I thought before I head out, why not run through my kit? And yes, this is also known as procrastination. So first off, an obvious one, the head torch. Now this, I'd say, is a good idea even if you are running somewhere that does have regular lighting and street lamps, because it's not only going to fill some of those voids that are dark, it's also just going to allow you to be seen. If you are heading away from regular street lamps and lighting, then you're going to want to invest in a stronger head torch with a higher lumen. Now, if you are going fully away from street lamps and potentially even venturing off-road, I would really recommend a lumen of above 350. That's going to allow you to see where you're going, and yeah, if you're heading off-road, definitely needed. Now, a lot of us often think of being visible from the front but forget our rear. So if you are running on roads or busy paths, then I would recommend having a red rear light so that vehicles and people can see you from behind too. Okay, so lights are brilliant, but the only issue of lights is that they're only really visible from one angle. Beyond that, and people can't see you so well. So that's where we want to look to fluorescent clothing. I'd almost border on saying these are essential, and they come in many shapes and forms. You can get fluorescent jackets, you get straps that go around your body, you can get vests like these that are very popular because they can be whisked on and off nice and easily. basically try to cover yourself in fluorescent stuff, and the bigger the better really. There's also reflective clothing, and quite often these days clothing comes with reflective strips as standard. So do check when you are buying clothing, because I'd say it's a very good idea, particularly if you are looking to run in the dark regularly. Normally you'll find them on the back of leggings, on socks, on shoes, basically any moving part is going to make it even more noticeable. And moving on, I know this isn't relevant for all of you, but running in the dark pretty much comes hand in hand with the cold for many of us in parts of the world. So dress accordingly. So I've got my hats ready, I wear this pretty much on every run these days, and my gloves, as well as a few layers. Okay, and then footwear. Now this is a less important one, but I've added it in simply because it is something that I consciously think about before I head out to run in the dark. Now, if I know I'm going to be purely running on the road, then I will simply wear my normal road running shoes, although something that I am really comfortable in, I feel really stable in, because there is the risk when you're running in the dark that you do trip, you stumble, or catch your foot on something. But if I know or think that I may be venturing off road slightly on muddy sections or puddles, then I'll pretty much straight away go for the off-road shoes, even if that is a bit of an overkill, just because it just gives me that confidence that I've got a bit more grip with that, because I can't see what's underfoot, and yes, I may slip in the mud. And finally, a phone. If you don't already run with a phone when you're heading out in the dark, then now may be a good time to change that. I mean, it goes without saying, running in the dark comes with its increased risk. So having a phone with you could be a potential backup to get yourself out of any tricky situations. And with that also, it's a very good idea just to let someone know what your plan is and where you're going before you head out for a run in the dark. Okay, well, I think that is all my kit. I'll run through the routes and ideas for that once we're out there. Now, unfortunately, the dark is not the time to go venturing off-road or onto new trails. I really recommend sticking to what you know, sticking to paths that you're familiar with. That said, actually sometimes some of those paths that are well trodden for yourself can actually feel quite exciting and different when running in the dark anyway. However, running in the dark does also, of course, come with its increased risk. So I would really recommend sticking to areas that you know to be safe. If you're not sure, then have an ask around with others beforehand. They may be able to recommend areas or paths that they feel are safe. Failing that, why not find others to run with? That way you have the enjoyment of company as well as safety in numbers. Also, it is a good idea to run in areas that are well lit, if possible. I know that's not possible for everyone, but if you can, that just means that you can focus on the running itself and the effort you're trying to put out, rather than what is underfoot, potholes, stumps, and so on and so forth. A good place for this is the sidewalks or pavement. Ideally though, not too busy with a ton of commuters trying to make their way home, or loads of stop signs or junctions. Another option is an athletics track. Again, a brilliant surface, allows you to just focus on the effort and the running, but do check beforehand that it is well floodlit. Now, if you already regularly run in the dark in the morning or the evening, you'll know that some mornings and some evenings can be much lighter or much darker than others, and that can depend on the cloud cover, whether it's raining, whether you've got a full moon, and so on and so forth. So that does mean that some days you may actually be able to run in the dark in the morning or the evening without a head torch. Then the next day you may need a head torch. However, what I would say is just remind yourself of the fact that you may still need to be seen. If you're sharing that pavement, sidewalk, roads with other users at that time, then I would really recommend making sure you wear a fluorescent vest or some obvious clothing or a head torch, even if you don't necessarily need it to see yourself. Well, that is my run done, and I've got to say, it is amazing how much better you can feel after a run, and I guess it kind of leaves you wondering why you ever doubted heading out for that run in the first place. Now, admittedly, it may take a bit of willpower to get out for a run in the dark, but it's so liberating running in the dark too. Now, I mentioned earlier about running with someone else. Now, that's a really good idea if you are someone that's struggling to get out of the door, because by saying you're going to run with someone else, you feel accountable, you don't want to let them down, and also there is that feeling of safety in numbers. Now, another big thing with running, full stop, regardless of what time of day you do it, in daylight or in the dark, is just how much better it makes you feel. Now, for us here in the UK during the winter months and a lot of dark hours of the day, actually just getting out for that run can make you feel so much better. But finally, one last tip from myself, and something that I do when I'm trying to get my run done in the dark, and that is trying to plan a looped run. Now, what I find if I do an out and back run where I'm retracing my footsteps is that because my motivation may be dwindling a little bit in those dark hours, I tend to just turn it around earlier than I should do. Whereas when you're doing a looped run, you're committing to that distance or to that duration. So top tip from me. I hope you have enjoyed today's video. If so, please do give it a like. Don't forget to give GTN a follow over on social media. And if you're not doing so already, give us a little subscribe just down below.